Dr. Watson, would you kindly close the door behind you so that we can limit the price of your carelessness to merely hours of work rather than days?
My apologies, Mr. Holmes. I found myself rather taken aback. I saw tidier houses in war-torn Afghanistan. Are those my surgical needles?
I ran out of tacks and the matter required immediate attention.
Was that my supper?
Plainly not, for I was the one who ate it.
I set it aside for this evening.
And for that I am grateful.
Is that my bed?
Watson, since you've proven yourself a master of observation, might I ask you to apply your skills to a more pertinent question? Namely, the whereabouts of today's newspapers. They are the key to everything. The newsboy is usually reliable.
Medically speaking, I often find that the key to everything is good sleep. In a bed. Your papers are here, on the table.
Let us see what the postman brought today. Local gossip, all of it uninteresting. Your order from Barnes' bookshop has arrived, Doctor.
Barnes insists on delivering the books to our door, even though we could easily walk to his shop. That's good service.
Another letter from Werner. I never reply, but they keep coming. I don't see the Strand. Where is it?
Pardon me?
I am on the precipice of uncovering a pattern of crime across London spanning many months and involving many men. The missing paper cannot be a coincidence.
That's preposterous.
My dear fellow, life is infinitely stranger than anything which the mind of man can invent.
Well, life used your newspaper to wipe its posterior, so after that unpleasant discovery this morning, I disposed of it. But in lieu of the Strand, perhaps I can deliver you something equally tantalizing. I have just returned from a patient of mine, Captain Stemwick, who...
No, that will not do. Grab your coat, Dr. Watson. Let us hope nobody has collected the dustbin.
The dustbin is yours for the digging, Mr. Holmes.
A cactus spine. If it gets in your skin, it's awfully tricky to remove, and when laced with poison, the perfect assassination tool. You were mistaken, Dr. Watson. The paper was indeed dirtied, but not how you implied. It's potting soil. See, Watson? The conspiracy is real. Someone tried to poison me.
Poison? You? That's madness.
Get the Strand! Get your copy of the Strand here! Sorry, Mr. Holmes. I just sold my last paper.
Glassed. Then why are you still here?
Boss pays by the hour. No sense in returning early.
Any breaking news today?
The dock accident. It's the talk of the town.
Yes. Besides the tripe on the front page, anything about burglaries?
I'm not sure, sir.
You're a bright child. I presume you see everything that goes on around here?
Nothing gets past me, mister.
Then tell me, did you notice anyone suspicious at my door this morning?
Like the man with your newspaper?
Precisely. What do you know?
I know the value of a shilling.
Dr. Watson,
Cool, now I can take the day off.
did you see what he was up to?
Nah, not really. I saw him approaching your house, but I had a customer. Then there's a loud bang. I ducked down. Not 'cause I was scared, 'cause I wasn't. I had to protect the merchandise. And all I could see was him kneeling at your door.
Can you describe the man you saw?
He was carrying a lot of books. Up to his chin they were.
Never heard of a well-read assassin.
Looks can deceive. Hence the appeal of disguises. Which way did he go?
Not sure. I was distracted by customers. Sorry.
All right. You earned your shilling. That'll be all.
Thanks, Mr. Holmes. Maybe I could be your eyes and ears. If you have more shillings.
Come
Get
now,
the
Mr.
Strand.
Holmes, murder?
Get your copy of the
Yes,
Strand
Barnes has
here.
his quirks, but he also has his scruples.
Not every pawn knows it's part of a game.
Get the Strand. Get your copy of the Strand here.
Do you even have enemies that would want to kill you? Okay, perhaps from Cordona.
So, Barnes has a dog now. Who's a good boy? Mr. Barnes, a word. Ah, for goodness sake.
Who goes there?
Sherlock Holmes. Now will you please...
Mr. Holmes. Golly, I did not see you come in.
Would you care to answer some questions for me?
Well, I wish I could, but I am deep in the weeds with work. How about we reschedule in a month or two?
Come now, Mr. Barnes. It will only take a moment.
No, really deep in the weeds with important things. Well, help yourself to any book, just take it and pay later. I trust you, Mr. Holmes.
Barnes doesn't seem like himself. Why is he acting this way?
You're asking the right questions, Doctor. Let's find a way to coax him out. The ladder is broken, recently, judging by the freshness of the wood. I could hardly imagine anything more macabre. Basics of cryptoanalysis, cryptography in Egypt. It appears Barnes has an interesting hobby. In the language of Mycroft's secret agents, it's a sign. Dried flowers are replaced when the job is done. I wonder who the recipient is. An improvised stand, but it does make the flowers more visible. The finest view London has to offer.
Barnes has always been a little odd, but this is uncharacteristic even for him.
So, Barnes has a dog now. Who's a good boy?
Apologies, but I can't hear you. Please come back later.
weather is dreary, isn't it? To be fair, my flowers could use the rainfall.
Encouraging people to stop and smell the roses?
Our national emblem. God save the Queen.
It must take patience and care to produce a bloom so beautiful.
I imagine so. I merely sell them.
A familiar spine? Is this what I found in my dustbin? The pot is damaged. The blow was severe, but softened by something.
Anything tickle your fancy, Mr. Holmes?
Mrs. Fleming, you look particularly lovely today. Is there a reason?
Does a woman need a reason to look or feel beautiful?
No, but your distant look suggests you seek one man's gaze in particular.
Who told you that?
Nobody. Merely a keen eye and some simple deduction.
Well, I'll kindly ask you to keep your keen eye to yourself, Mr. Holmes. I don't know anything about this, sorry. Are you sure you're asking the right person? I'm just a flower seller.
What do you make of the flowers in Barnes' shop window?
Well, they could use a bit of water.
Do they mean anything to you?
Mean anything how? I'm not sure I follow, Mr. Holmes.
Why do you think they're there?
Are you suggesting the flowers are for me?
It seems likely, does it not?
Oh, I hope you're right. I'm afraid I can't help with that, Mr. Holmes. I'm afraid I can't help with that, Mr. Holmes.
One of these things is not like the other.
Come again?
The cactus. Those fearsome spines can prove a devil to remove, and the sap is often toxic.
And a rose thorn can give you tetanus, but we still grow them. The cactus seems comparatively harmless, though you have me thinking it must be valuable.
I was under the impression that you knew its price already.
Your guess is as good as mine. The first time I saw this cactus was when I came back from my break. I'm afraid I can't help with that, Mr. Holmes. Are you sure you're asking the right person? I'm just a flower seller.
Are you familiar with Mr. Barnes?
Yes. No. Not really. Well, in a way.
What on earth does that mean?
I know who he is, of course, but we haven't shared much more than a look.
A look?
Yes. Each morning I go for a walk in the park with my dog, and most days I spot Mr. Barnes there with his new puppy. So we see each other. Actually, we once met briefly while our dogs played. He was quiet and seemed unsteady as he approached. But since then, we've never spoken. I often see him staring through the shop window. Sometimes I wonder what he thinks about that would etch such longing onto his face.
I think perhaps I have been chasing shadows.
Do not despair, Mr. Holmes. Even the best of us make mistakes. We better tell Mr. Barnes what we've learned.
Mr. Barnes, I know what you did, and I know why you did it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Holmes. I can't hear you very well from behind the door.
You ordered a cactus from the plant catalogue and then left it for Mrs. Fleming as a gift. You place flowers in the window to get her attention and wear high heels to appear taller and more desirable. You are her secret admirer. I couldn't read this morning's edition of The Strand because it was covered in soil and spines. I know you dropped a cactus on it and then fled.
Barnes, it's Dr. Watson. Rest assured we are not interested in disclosing your personal affairs to anyone, including Mrs. Fleming. Please come out.
All right, then.
So, you know what happened then? I was on my way back from the post office, having picked up the cactus and some books. It was quite an awkward package, heavy too, and when I got to your door, I dropped the cactus in your paper. Forgive me.
I needed that paper to prove a theory and prevent a crime. Your actions were rather disruptive. Your clumsiness carrying the post is matched only by the clumsiness of your romantic gesture.
Oh, it's true. I am useless with this sort of thing. I'm not even sure if Mrs. Fleming noticed.
As in most things in life, truth is the answer. Cease with the abstruse signals and anonymous gifts, and simply talk to the woman. What is the worst that can happen? She rejects you, and you are freed from this endless purgatory.
That... Yes, you are correct, of course. I do have a slight tendency to overthink things. Thank you.
So at last, we return to the matter of the paper. I'm investigating a string of burglaries. Did you perhaps read of any before the edition was spoiled?
I don't recall, but you're welcome to read our copy for yourself.
You had an issue of The Strand here all along?
Well, naturally. I am a bookseller. I have a subscription to every magazine and newspaper in London.
So you ought to be familiar with the concept of burying the lead.
Oh no, my apologies, Mr. Holmes. I'll make it up to you however I can. I am an expert on obscure languages and translation and.
Yes, okay. Just give me the paper. Come, Dr. Watson. Let us put this matter behind us.
Farewell, Mr. Barnes. I hope to hear good news about you and Mrs. Fleming.
Let me know if there's any way I can make it up to you. Tell you what, tomorrow's edition of The Strand is on me.
Well, that was an utter waste of time.
An assassination did seem rather unlikely.
There was supposed to be another burglary. I was certain of it. Something you wish to say, Doctor?
No. Well, only that you have a remarkable faculty for deduction and pattern recognition. And that perhaps, if ill-applied...
I see things that are not there.
Yes. It is London. There will always be burglaries. Doesn't have to mean anything.
So it seems. Forgive me. Without something to occupy my mind, I turn into an entirely different animal.
Which brings us back to my news from earlier. I think I have a case for you, a real one.
Truly?
Indeed. Though perhaps not as thrilling as your stories from Cordona. A patient of mine, Captain Stenwick, told me that his servant disappeared. I said I knew just the man to help. What do you say?
Oh, Watson.
Yes, I know it's not the most tantalizing mystery, nor the story to launch my writing career. But...
it's brilliant. Let's go.
Oh, good. Well, his house is nearby. Come. Not much further now.
Is this lousy attitude of yours because of my altercation with Inspector Lockhart? Did he put you up to this?
Sir, the inspector has nothing to do with it. I'm telling you the same thing I tell anyone seeking a missing person.
Good day, gentlemen. Forgive the intrusion. Captain Stenwick, this is my colleague Sherlock Holmes, the consulting detective I told you about.
At last, a professional. This useless officer refuses to do anything about Kimmy here, my missing servant. What was your name again? I shall be certain to inform your superiors.
Sergeant Ruffles. And it's my superiors who made this decision, sir.
Why has the police department decided not to help?
We investigate murders, thefts, fraud, arson, real crimes. A servant walking away from his master is not our highest priority. That said, if we find Kimahia breaking the law, we'll be sure to notify Captain Stenwick.
Have there been other disappearances lately?
Of course, here and there. But when life is tough and opportunity comes knocking, you can't blame those who answer. Now, I must be off. Best of luck in your search.
You heard that, didn't you? The way that man spoke to me. I shall need your written testimony. Then we can lodge a complaint.
Captain, perhaps Mr. Holmes' time is better spent learning about your servant, so that he may begin his investigation.
Ah, yes. Quite right. Fire away.
Tell me about Kimahia.
He's foreign. A Maori. All the way from New Zealand. Biggest man you've ever seen. And as strong as two. Dark hair and fearsome tattoos. He doesn't speak a whit of English. Never bothered to learn. But I made do with pointing. I invested a lot of money in him, so he must be found.
When did you last see your servant?
Kimmy here normally brings me the morning papers, but yesterday I had to get them myself. He must have escaped the night before yesterday.
May I see your servant's bedroom?
His shack is in the garden. You can't miss it.
Did you search the room?
Of course, but only to check he wasn't lying dead inside. Everything seemed normal at a glance.
Is there any reason Kimahir may have left?
I should think not. He had all he could have wanted. Gainful employment, new clothes, and all the cabbage he could eat.
I take it this is the first time Kimahir has vanished?
Undoubtedly. The man seemed terrified of the city. I think it was all the noise. He never left this estate. Should he cause any damage, I will bear the responsibility, for it was I who rescued him from savagery and brought him here to England in the first place.
Did Kimahir make off with anything of value?
Heavens, no. I would have mentioned it to Sergeant Ruffles.
Still, he must have fled with some money on his person.
No. I kept his wages in my safe. For security.
All right, Captain. I think I have enough to get started. We shall first take a look around the mansion.
Go ahead. I'll be here, mentally drafting my complaint.
Stenwick makes his servant live in a tool shed. You think you know someone.
A shoe print, roughly size 11, with a worn-out sole. These are a workman's boots. Chewing tobacco. Looks like a knee print. Someone knelt here. The amount of chewing tobacco suggests they were waiting a while.
Amazing, Mr. Holmes. To read the ground like an open book. Do you think Kimmy here had an accomplice in his escape?
This lock is quite unusual. It appears that the key should be bent to the right.
Yes, Stenwick is no angel, but he's one of my few clients. Please, try to remain courteous.
rag reeks of smoke. Someone plugged the chimney. Could have left these tracks. They seem fresh. Impressive. The sack of grain retained the shape of an impact. Someone hit their head here. A small navy spyglass. Is this a Tanifar, a Maori water spirit, or something else?
Either way, it's giving me chills.
A Maori nose flute. Ngurus, they're called. Clothes made of Hessian. Is Stenwick really so miserly?
This disappearance is intriguing, no? I cannot make head nor tail of it.
Mutton chops. The remains of a meal. A heavy chemical odour. Lend me your nose, Doctor.
Ah, I'll never forget that smell after my time in Afghanistan. That's an opioid, Mr. Holmes, a narcotic.
The ashes are long since cold. A scrap of Hessian. These were sturdy boxes. It would have required a serious blow to break them.
earth are you going with this? Where on earth are you going with this?
The door to your garden has an interesting lock.
Yes, I have uncommon locks on every door of my mansion. It makes them harder to pick. Kimmy here and I both had a set of keys.
I'll need to borrow them.
No, you'll need to do what I tell you to do. Examine the garden.
Has Kimahir ever indulged in tobacco?
No, the man doesn't even drink.
Are you certain? I found chewing tobacco in the garden.
I controlled Kimihir's expenses since he struggled with the currency. I would have known if he used tobacco.
Do you happen to know Kimahir's shoe size?
I wouldn't have the foggiest. But I'm sure it was enormous. Not that it matters. He spent his life barefoot. Despite my best efforts, he simply did not take to shoes.
Is this spyglass familiar?
I don't recognize it.
Could it be Kimahir's, perhaps?
I doubt it. I never saw him with it, nor could I suggest how he might have come by it.
I came across a pile of Hessian clothes in the shack. Are they Kimahir's?
Yes. I had to give him something to clothe himself. He seemed unfazed by his bare skin, but I found it distracting.
This disappearance is intriguing, though. I cannot make head nor tail of it.
This lock is quite unusual. It appears that the key should be bent to the right.